Now, Lowcountry Forever, a public affairs presentation of the Charleston Radio Group.
Have you thought to yourself, boy, it seems like a long time since I've been at SEWE? There's a group of people who it's been an even longer time for, and that's our topic of conversation today. I'm Brian Cleary on Lowcountry Forever, joined by John Powell. John is the executive director of SEWE. And John, it just seems like it's been forever since SEWE has been here, but it hasn't been that long, right?
It hasn't. It's certainly been the longest stretch that we've had between SEWEs. We had an online presence last year and did our best to support artists and conservation organizations. But from a physical standpoint, February will be the first time in 2 years. We're really excited about it.
Well, everybody's all excited about it because it's an event that has so many things going on and so much missed. But in that time, a lot of folks have moved into the Lowcountry. I mean, obviously, we're a growing area. So it could be that some people aren't familiar with what SEWE is and what it's all about. Could you give an explanation for our newbies?
Sure. SEWE is a 3-day wildlife art-based event. We've been holding it since 1983, and the core of the event is over 100 wildlife artists, painters, sculptors, carvers that are assembled in the Fine Art Gallery at Charleston Place. And then anything and everything that has to do with wildlife, and some of those things are a stretch, are represented in our 4 other exhibit sites in downtown Charleston. Artisans, craftsmen, woodworkers, guides, outfitters. There's scores of canine events with competitions, demonstrations, and then the conservation arena. You've got demonstrations like the Center for Birds of Prey, Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, Jeff Corwin, and the list goes on and on. You'll hear me mention SEWE.com as much as possible because I will leave things off.
Let's start there because SEWE.com, tickets are on sale right now. Folks can get different packages, whether it's individual or 3-day. So the website's really going to be the source for all things SEWE.
Absolutely. And some of those packages are sold out, but general admission tickets will certainly still be on sale now until February 1st. You can also get your tickets at the local visitor center and the Gilliard Center.
And so the event is always kind of referenced locally as the kickoff of the tourist season here in the Charleston area. And really, I don't know that people understand or even think about it in this way, but I know that as the executive director, you have to. This event has a large economic benefit footprint here for the Charleston and the entire Lowcountry area.
And I think this year, and I've said this a lot, we've never felt as much pressure to focus on this part of our mission, which is the economic impact. We are a bellwether for what the tourist season is going to look like. Back in the days when you didn't have the ability to track like we do now, visitor spending and those sorts of things, I think people looked at SEWE and said, okay, this is what it's going to be like. And based on our ticket sales and the excitement, whether that's attributed to pent-up demand or just the fact that folks haven't been able to SEWE in a couple of years, things are looking very positive for Charleston and the region.
And it's amazing the amount of talent that you're able to bring in and that we have here locally. I couldn't paint by numbers. I can't sculpt anything. But when you get down and you really see some of these paintings and some of the craftsmanship and the work that is done, this is an amazing group of talent that you've been able to all put together here in Charleston.
It's an extraordinary list of artists from California to right here in the Lowcountry. And we try to represent not only a geographic range, but a wide range in medium size, price. Some of our artists are recognized in the National Museum of Wildlife Art, and some are up-and-comers, and a lot in between. And so we create this great balance. And it's also attractive to our collectors in that they have an entry point. And then there are folks that are very serious collectors. They've been in this a long time, and they have very specific artists and very specific things they're come to look for. So it's a lot of fun to assemble this big group.
We're happy to be talking about the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition that returns again February 7th through February 20th in downtown Charleston. I'm Brian Cleary today on Lowcountry Forever, joined by John Powell. He is the executive director of SEWE. John, let's get down to some of the individual events. Let's start with one that always folks talk about, the dock dogs. You guys have grown this to wall, hard to get in. People love the dock dogs.
Sure, and that's a good one. It's on the schedule pretty much all day, every day. If you're down at Brittlebank Park and you want to see some dogs flying through the air, it won't be too difficult. And yet we've seen the sport grow. It was in its infancy a little bit during the first few years it was at SEWE, and they've grown nationally. And SEWE is a very important event for dock dogs in the country. And so you see a lot of canine talent. Some of these dogs are coming from a long way away to be here for a big competition.
It's amazing to watch, but folks are serious about it. It's not like you can just go, hey, I got my Fido here, and then he'll try, and he's not going to be competing. It really is an amazing event and something that you guys have, like every piece of SEWE, have grown. And that's got to be, I guess, part of the challenge for you, because I'm going to SEWE. I'm going to see something different this year than last time.
It is. And you spoke about new people moving to Lowcountry. We try to strike a balance. We have people that come every year and they expect to see what they've grown to love. So we won't want to change it too much, but we have to keep adding things or making a shift here and there so that it creates excitement. And that is the same at all our exhibit sites. And so we have a new sponsor this year in Purina Pro Plan, and they're bringing in Mike Stewart with Wild Rose Kennels. And so that's a different type of retriever demonstration. He's a well-known trainer. And so, staying true to our core, but also offering something different.
And we can focus as well on what happens on Marion Square, because that's always certainly a center of all the days of the SEWE event. Birds of Prey. There's a lot that goes on there between Meeting and King Streets in Marion Square.
Sure, and it's one of our most visible sites, obviously, with people coming into town. Center for Birds of Prey being, very dear to me personally. That group does an incredible job on a shoestring budget. They bring their whole staff in from Allendale and put on some incredible performances. And so that's a good local conservation-based organization that we like to celebrate and hopefully send people to Allendale during the year to go see more of that. We also have South Carolina Department of Agriculture with their certified SC program and cooking demonstrations. Ducks Unlimited has a huge presence there. Canine organizations with adoptions and the list goes on. So a lot to see there, and Marion Square is free and open to the public, so it's attractive.
And there'll be some events inside, including you mentioned that Jeff Corwin is coming. What can we expect from him at this year's SEWE?
Sure. So we never really get the list of animals that Jeff Corwin or Bush Wildlife Sanctuary will have until pretty close to the show. But, I think the audience has a lot of fun. They notice him from television. He's passionate about what he's doing. He does his shows often with Bush Wildlife, so you get plenty of animals, plenty of a variety, and hopefully something that somebody hasn't seen in years past.
And I hate to bring up the C word, but we have to, because we're still in the quote-unquote pandemic. Most of what goes on with SEWE is outdoors, but are there COVID-19 protocols that folks should be aware of that are going to be coming to the event?
Yeah, nobody likes the word, but it's important to talk about. We do have the benefit of having the majority of our events outside, including after-hours events that happen at the Visitor Center bus shed or at Brittlebank. Right now, we don't want to make a declaration, this thing is still evolving. We know that in places like our shuttle system, we will have masks. That's a corporate policy from First Student, who's our charter company that we do there. And that makes a lot of sense. I think folks are used to that from a mass transit standpoint.
Right.
And then outside of that, it's really a mask to your comfort level standpoint. I reference this all the time. My whole family comes to support me that weekend, and I've got a 10-year-old nephew and 74-year-old parents. And you kind of know what their comfort level will be, and we expect to see that out of our crowd.
And that is the great thing about SEWE. It is certainly a family-friendly event, a generational event. Mom, dad, grandma, the kids. Southeastern Wildlife Exposition coming up on February 17th through the 20th in downtown Charleston. We're talking today on Lowcountry Forever with John Powell, the executive director of SEWE. John, tell me something. It might be a little something small, something big, but let's go to you personally. Is there a nugget in SEWE that you really like that you think, maybe people need to focus on this more? It might be a tough thing because obviously there's so many things, but is there one or two things that you always think about that maybe people miss out on that they need to see?
Sure. Interesting that you asked that, because we already talked about the art, but I have the unique privilege of being able to sort of walk the ballroom at night. I get through security pretty easily, and to see the art that is assembled here, we're talking about basically thousands of pieces of art. And it's incredible to have the artists that are present with their work and to be able to come and meet these artists and have a conversation with them. That goes so much further than just seeing a piece of art blankly on the wall. And so there's that, and I get to see the new work that artists that I love have created. And then there's always something new, like you were talking about earlier. This year, I got to meet some of the men and women of the Coast Guard who, weather permitting and no real emergency happening, they're going to do a search and rescue demonstration off of Brittlebank Saturday at 1 o'clock. And so that's something new. Whether I get a chance to see it or not is to be seen, but it's a new thing that we can offer. And, people ask, well, the Coast Guard has a lot to do with the fisheries, with law enforcement and these sorts of things. So it all ties back into conservation, but it's an exciting thing that we can all watch and get behind, and folks can learn more about not only the Coast Guard, but what they do. So a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new that I like to see every year.
And as we talk about the art that is part of SEWE, talk a little bit about the Seaweed Poster, because that's always something that each year there's a different poster design, and it's something that people love to get their hands on. Tell us a little bit about that, how that came about this year.
Yeah, great question. So one of the first things we do to set the tone for the next SEWE, and sometimes that happens more than 12 months out, is select our featured artist. And this year it was Julia Rogers from Maryland. She's an exceptional artist. And then we challenge them, with coming up with a featured painting. And typically we see 4 or 5 different ideas. The swans this year certainly spoke to all of us. It's a beautiful image. It's inspirational, not unlike Mark Horton's last year. So a lot of artists trying not to replicate an animal that's been done before. And so anyway, that sets, whether intentionally or just a byproduct, or things like South Carolina Audubon Society is partnering with us this year, and they're helping to host a preview afternoon. So we're very bird specific, and this is great meeting of talking about conservation and art, all centered around birds. So it's just kind of fun that these things sort of happen organically during the planning process.
And you mentioned the fact that we're talking about conservation. And obviously, or maybe not obviously, I'm not certain people always understand, but there is a mission that your organization and SEWE has. Can you explain that so people understand that SEWE, while it's a great time, your organization is more than just about putting on a 4-day festival in Charleston?
Sure. Our mission is multifaceted. As you know, we've got art, conservation, we have the economic impact. But the conservation bit, whether you're talking about an organization like Ducks Unlimited that has one of their top fundraising events in the country during SEWE, there are also conversations that are being had between individuals, just walking around the ballroom where, significant pieces of land are essentially saved because of these organizations that are involved, and they're talking to high net worth individuals. And then you have, whether it's a pet adoption organization or someone like the Turtle Alliance. I mean, the list goes on, and some of these organizations that don't have the platform that SEWE can provide to 40,000 people. And then you have, whether it's the Coast Guard or you talk about the Department of Natural Resources, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, a lot of these unsung heroes of conservation that do this day in and day out, whether it's research or enforcement. They're on hand to share their knowledge with the general public and to have the access to these individuals and to have these discussions with 40,000 like-minded people. It goes beyond dollars raised. I think if you talk about the educational piece and the ability to inspire some of our youth, if it's just for a weekend, it pays dividends for a long time.
And at the end of the day, you've got a nonprofit organization. There's a lot. I mean, obviously, this event is huge. It takes a lot of money and help to put it on. Are there some sponsors or some folks that you can mention? Obviously, you've got a lot of sponsors, but can we mention some folks who have stepped up to help out to put on this year's SEWE?
Sure, and put me on the spot because we have nearly 50 partners.
Wow.
That wide range. But interestingly, we've had these conversations, and while their names have changed over the years, Wells Fargo and Dominion Energy, they were the first two sponsors of SEWE, a million years ago, and they've never left.
Wow.
So when you think about that consistency, folks like Boeing and Baker Motor Company who invest in organizations like SEWE because of the multifaceted mission. And then we have new companies coming in like Purina Pro Plan. They see the canine angle, the thousands of dogs and dogs owners that are here during the weekend. And then you have a company like Nicholas Air, private air charters. They see a certain demographic in Charleston and folks that come in here who are looking for private air charters in the leisure and business category. So it's a really wide range. I think we've got something for everybody. And we're very fortunate that all of our partners and those that will be listed on the signage on our website, I'm sorry I don't have time to talk about them all now, have stepped up and said this is an important event. It's important for Charleston to get back to being Charleston, and they're behind us 100%.
We're excited that it's coming back. Lots of people are, so tickets are going fast. So some individual events probably have sold out. What's the best advice that you could give to somebody listening today if they want to attend SEWE?
Well, they can find out what's still available on our website. General admission tickets are still going to be available, but if you don't get them by the 1st, you'll need to get them at the Visitor Center at Gilliard or on site. And then you can see what events still have tickets available, again, under our special events tab on our website.
And that website address is?
SEWE.com, SEWE.com.
It's coming up fast, the official kickoff of the tourist season in Charleston. I got to think you're pumped for this year, John, for SEWE.
Every year is different, and it's a unique experience to work all year for a 3-day plus event. But I'd say the spirit of Charleston, whether it's the media or the corporate partners that you referenced or those that are calling in and asking about policies and wanting to buy tickets, it's been extraordinary. I think people really want to see these large-scale events happen in Charleston. They understand the impact in the community, and it's part of the fabric of the life we live here. It's been a trying year for the staff, but one that's challenged us and has been really exciting to see actually come to fruition here in a few weeks.
Go to SEWE.com, get your tickets today, and be a part of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition February 18th through the 20th in downtown Charleston. Executive Director John Powell of SEWE, our guest on Lowcountry Forever.
The Charleston Radio Group is the Lowcountry. Every week, we highlight local organizations and events that are helping to make a difference here where we live. If you have a group, event, or an idea to feature on Lowcountry Forever, let us know. Visit lowcountryforever.com and click on our podcast link for contact information. Now, Lowcountry Forever continues.
There hasn't been anyone who hasn't been affected by COVID-19 and the pandemic. although some industries perhaps affected more than others, one being the live entertainment industry. And that's what we're discussing today on Lowcountry Forever. I'm Brian Cleary, and today we're joined by Charles Carmody. He is with the Charleston Music Hall, I always get confused. Grand Poobah, would that be your title?
Yeah, I like Grand Poobah.
Okay, all right. The Grand Poobah of the Charleston Music Hall, which, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke your way, but I think is the best music venue here in Charleston. If you haven't been to a show down there, you've got to experience it. And now, thankfully, tons of shows going on. But 2 years ago, Charles, I can't imagine someone in your position, what you were going through when you kind of get this call that's like, hey, all the shows are canceled.
Yeah, oh my gosh. March 12th, we had our last show, which was Postmodern Jukebox. And then the 13th, we were supposed to have Infamous String Dusters. That canceled. And then we said, let's sit on this over the weekend. We came back the next week, and it was 1 month canceled, 2 month canceled, and then finally it went 100 shows canceled, gone.
And we've seen a number of businesses, whether they're small mom and pop things or entertainment venues or whatever, they kind of went away. You took a different tact, and I think in some ways were aggressive and did a wonderful job bringing some live entertainment during that time to folks here in the Lowcountry.
Thank you. Yeah, we pivoted and we took a seat for almost 6.5, 7 months, and we just came up with creative ideas to like merch deals and stuff like that. But then we realized, oh no, we've got to figure something out. So we reached out to the Pearlsteins who own the Bend, and we took the music hall outside. We created the Bend concert series around the Bend, and I literally hammered in stakes into the ground, 8 by 10. We did 150 of these to start. It ended up growing up to 300, and 4 people per, socially distanced, outside, no food or drink that first fall, bringing all your own stuff to keep no contact with anyone. Yeah, we went outside, and it was a wild time.
Well, and for people who don't realize, folks just think, oh, concerts, bands come in, they make a lot of money, you sell a lot of tickets, it's so easy. But you've got staff, you've got production people. That's not an easy thing to do, and that's a lot of salary and things like that you're keeping afloat.
That was a big reason for going outside, too. By May 1, we had furloughed everyone. Everyone. We had no business, and we had no future prospect of business. So around July, I started really freaking out over the sound guys and even the security staff that were out of work, and thinking like, number one, how are we going to bring our team back? But also like, how are we going to survive? And that's where we pushed hard to do these outside concerts. We ended up doing 25 of these big outdoor concerts, and it helped for sure. It helped to keep us engaged. It helped staff some people. But what you find out is that you make about the same amount of money, if not a little less, doing these big outdoor concerts than I could do literally just opening the doors of the music hall, because you got to build the stage,
right.
The staff is triple, quadruple the size. You've got all these other elements that it's expensive to do.
And for your particular industry, even if you were able to have shows in the music hall, were there any acts that would have come and played?
Not in 2020. By the end of 2020, so we reopened the hall at the end of November at 250 capacity. We are 965 seated, so wow. 25% capacity. We created a seat map where you could only buy in twos, and there was 3 seats between everyone, and mobile ordering only with like special pickup and plexi everywhere, everyone mask, all that stuff. And even then, we were relying on regional artists and not very many who even wanted to work at that point. And then, of course, we got hit by that bad round of it around Christmas in 2020. So January 2021, we shut back down. And that's when it got really dark over like, oh no, like, what are we going to do?
So you're thinking you're coming back, and then rug pulled out again.
And then February 2021, we came back at 25% capacity, and we ran that until June. So we were actually running inside we did about 3 shows a week inside. And then we were also doing the outdoor concerts, and we did about 15 of those in between March and June. And between that, like, not breaking even by any means, but at least we started to see it help. But it was not a sustainable business model for long. But thankfully, by August, we were reopened full capacity.
We're talking with Charles Carmody today on Lowcountry Forever. He is the market director of the Charleston Music Hall in downtown Charleston. So at what point, are we still not at that point? Hopefully we are, but at what point are you going, okay, economically, I can make this work. We can continue on it and start taking the music hall back to what it had been pre-pandemic?
September 2021 is when we started to finally. So March 2020 to a year and a half later is when we finally saw a month that was in the black. kind of.
And when you talk about that and you talk about you being in the black, the music hall does make an economic footprint in downtown Charleston and for the area. Your staff, less hours, less money, but that also meant less economically for the city itself.
Absolutely. And that's why entertainment facilities and the arts are so important to the economics and the soul of the city. Because, yeah, you got to imagine if we have a sold out show, that's 1,000 people that are paying the city to park somewhere. I would say the majority of them are going out to eat or are engaging in some other business near us in downtown Charleston. Yeah, it's a huge economic impact when Rue de Jean next door isn't, seeing 300 covers on a sold out show night. So you do start to see that kind of ripple out.
It could be that there's somebody who's listening to us today and they haven't been to the Charleston Music Hall. Shame on them, but talk a little bit about the venue because it's a historic place, not a bad seat in the house, all those things. Tell us all about the wonderfulness of the Charleston Music Hall.
Yeah, the Charleston Music Hall is a very special, beautiful space. It was a train station built in 1850, and then horrible earthquake in 1886 hurt the building pretty bad and became a manufacturing plant, and then it was a warehouse for many years until Bennett Hofford bought it in the early 90s and renovated it into the Charleston Music Hall in 1994. So in 1994, it became what it is now, the Charleston Music Hall. It was a bit ahead of its time, I would say, in the area and for what it was. So by the time I came along, I took it over in 2012. It had closed down except for private rentals. So in 2012, I went to the owner of the building and said, "You have a 1,000-seat venue in downtown Charleston. We gotta get this back open." He let me come in and do some work on the building and reopen it. And since then, it's been phenomenal. It's 965 seats. Not a bad seat in the house. The sightlines are amazing. The sound is amazing. Peter Frampton told me it was the best room he'd ever heard and played in, which is pretty cool. We've had just some amazing compliments on that for sure. And we went from doing 60 events in 2013 to 278 events in 2019.
It's rare now that there's not a night that you don't have something in there.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think 250 is about where we'll land. 2022 TBD, but so far so good. So I'm hopeful that, we'll get back there.
And so we're not completely out of the pandemic at this point. So in terms of COVID and the protocols you have, if someone's coming to a show at the Charleston Music Hall, what do they need to know?
Yes, we are still in the COVID check protocols right now, which is patrons must show proof of vaccination or a negative test within 72 hours. Now, that negative test could be PCR, but you also can bring an at-home test, and we have a testing site on-site outside of the building. We have a team there to test folks that want to go that route. We've got a lot of people saying thank you for helping us be safe. We've gotten almost as many people saying, how dare you do this? It is a house divided, apparently, and we're just trying. We can't shut back down. We can't. We've got to move forward, and I am hopeful that those protocols will come off this year for sure, within the next 6 months, I hope. But, it's every day we're keeping a close eye on everything. And also trying to stick to the standards of Live Nation and AEG and following suit for what they're doing.
And for somebody who maybe hasn't been to a show lately, there are some shows now where the floor seating is a little different because you'll put in, for some concerts, a general admission seating.
Absolutely. I took the time during COVID. There's 284 orchestra seats. Took those out, put these new really cool seats in that don't bolt into the floor. They're just all counterbalanced with legs, and they go up, they go on a rack, the rack rolls away, and we now have a huge open floor in front of the stage. So 900 people can come and fill out the floor. There's still seats in the back of the floor, to be clear. So there's about 10 rows of seats and then a huge open floor plan. And then the balcony will be reserved for most shows.
We're talking to Charles Carmody today. He is with the Charleston Music Hall. It's a venue that has survived the pandemic and is seemingly coming out great on the other side. Now, a Led Zeppelin tribute band, and then the next night, a country artist, Ashley McBryde, played the Charleston Music Hall on back-to-back nights. Some folks may even know just for coming down to Brad and Jennifer Morantz's shows along the holidays. Some venues are known as a rock venue or whatever venue. How is it that you decide, hey, we're going to have a Queen tribute band, and we're going to have Three Dog Night, and then we're going to have Lettucey? Every genre seems to play the music hall.
That's our goal. I mean, we want to see more diversity, honestly. I mean, I do believe that this is a diversity that can support a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different types of artists. And booking is a fine balance between wanting to get, amazing quality acts, but also wanting to get acts that will sell tickets. We definitely want to push the envelope on bringing new acts to town that might be a bit more of a risk, while also, bringing some of those acts that everyone loves. Yeah, it's always a tightrope to walk on the booking front.
This year, 2022, knock on wood, if you go to charlestonmusichall.com and look at the calendar, whether it's comedians, music entertainment, TEDx Charleston, there's not a lot of open dates on your calendar right now, which is a great thing.
It is good. It's good to see the artists back on the road. It's good to see local events and promoters and planners starting to come back online. And it's even more amazing to see patrons and just to see them again, see our regulars, see them in the seats, see them enjoying themselves. It was a pretty dark time for a lot of people, and we want to help bring joy and light back into people's lives.
Now, do you see more artists coming out? Because obviously for 18 months, 2 years, whatever time frame you want to put on, these guys were sitting at home. That meant their bus driver wasn't getting anything, their crew. Do you see now an explosion of, hey, everybody wants to get out and play, or there's still some, I'm a little nervous?
No, it's an explosion for sure. It's to the point where, it's hard to find bus drivers right now. It's hard to find buses right now. Everyone is trying to make up for lost time a bit. And you're right. I mean, these artists and crews and everyone have been sitting at home, and they need, just like us, they need to keep moving forward and going to survive. So I am very happy with the amount of shows going out. I think there is definitely a potential for oversaturation, but at the same time, I think patrons are hungry to see entertainment again. It's a great time to be a patron. It's a great time to be a lover of music, because I think you're going to get it all, the next 3 years.
And I talk about it, there's not a bad seat in the house. The sound is there as well. What about other amenities? I can go down and get more than Holy City popcorn. You can have a whole concert experience when you come out to the music hall.
Yeah, we have beer, wine, all kinds of great concessions, a lot of them locally focused. We have actually 3 different concessions areas and a 4th mobile area now to try and keep the bar lines down. We have a great area to hang out upstairs. We've just renovated. We really are trying to make people, the whole experience from when you park to when you leave, we want it all to be seamless and enjoyable.
And you mentioned the word local, because I think that's important to some of your programming, in that local artists are featured there quite a great deal, and it's great to have that venue. Do you find that the local artists, are they coming to you, or are you reaching out to them as a combination?
It's a combination. I think for our size, we engage our local artists, have to be a little creative in it. It's not just throwing up a 3-band local bill.
Right.
I mean, that's hard to sell. It's more Charlton Singleton curating a concert of the greatest love songs of all time, or Lindsay Holler curating a tribute with our Women and series, where female musicians pay homage to Neil Young and the Beatles and typical male personas and do a twist on it. So we do have fun producing and collaborating with local artists to create these shows that might have some more interest for folks.
I have to ask you about this. I went on the website and looked at your little profile there. First concert ever. You might have to turn in your man card here, but so can we get an NSYNC reunion at the music hall, because that was your first concert? What's the deal?
First concert ever was NSYNC at the Coliseum in North Charleston. Absolutely, that was it. And they came out on that floating stage, and I was over the moon. I have had a Backstreet Boy and a New Kids on the Block play here. But NSYNC, I think that might be beyond us.
Maybe if they knew it was your first ever show, they might wear them down.
Maybe I could convince Justin, yeah.
I can't believe you can answer this, but just give me some sort of sense. You've seen any number of acts, obviously, come in and out of the music hall. Give me 1 or 2 of your favorite shows that really, for you personally, stood out and you really thought, wow, I'm glad we booked that show. And I just personally enjoyed that artist.
Yeah, Glenn Hansard, who was in an Irish film called Once that came out in 2007. He's an Irish singer-songwriter. Glenn Hansard was here in maybe 2014, 2015. Phenomenal. I love Irish music, even though he's more folk and he has some Americana stuff, but played for 3.5 hours. He ended up running into a local band, the Mobros, at a pawn shop, and they came to the concert, and he brought him up on stage at one point, and it was 1,000 of us sitting at his kitchen table, listening to him play music. I love when artists get to that level of intimacy, and that's what I love about this space, is that we can get some bigger artists, but it does feel kind of like you're sitting in their lap, which is great.
The venue itself, you mentioned at the beginning that you do private events there. People can rent out the Charleston Music Hall if they're interested.
Absolutely, yeah. We do a lot of graduations. We do a lot of corporate events. We partner with some nonprofit fundraisers. We're doing a Lip Sync for Lungs event, which is super fun. We raised $200,000 for the American Lung Association last year with them actually doing these lip sync battles. We have a full-size movie screens. We do movie screenings. We do a bunch of different rental events, which is great.
And so for people who want information on the Charleston Music Hall, I guess the best place to go for purchasing tickets or finding out about stuff like that is your website, which is?
charlestonmusichall.com. Do not Google it and click on the first thing, okay? Because it is most likely a scalper site, everyone. Be very careful. It has to be www.charlestonmusichall.com. It says official website at the top.
Take that advice when you visit the website and go see a great show at the Charleston Music Hall. Charles Carmody is the market director of the Charleston Music Hall and our guest today on Lowcountry Forever.
Thanks for listening to Lowcountry Forever. If you missed any of this week's show, there's a complete recording under the podcast link at lowcountryforever.com. Lowcountry Forever is a public affairs presentation of the Charleston Radio Group.